Welcome to another episode of the On the Water Podcast. Jimmy Fee, Matt Haeffner, Anthony DeiCicchi, and our guest this week is going to be Captain Doug Toback and his son DJ Toback, who are that's the father-son team behind Corazon Charters. But before we get into them, we're going to get back to the intros. We used to do the intros before the podcast, and those were a lot of fun. And we're going to start doing them. We're kicking them off with a little bit of a different one this week. We're going to do Striper Trivia. I'm going to test not only Cheech's knowledge, but Matt, and see if he is worthy of being the assistant editor here of On the Water. This Striper Trivia I do it every year at Striper Fest. And when I'm laying out the questions for it, I'm thinking these are pretty basic. And then I realized I'm a super nerdy loser about striper fishing. Yeah. And while I was in high school, reading up on striper trivia, other people are out partying and doing fun things. So it's a mix. I'm curious to see how you guys will do.
I should remember these answers from Striper Fest.
Did you sit in on? Oh yeah, that's right.
I had to.
He's got a bit of.
I had to operate the laptop.
He's got a
yeah, I'm putting. We should have
advantage.
a partition here or something like that to keep Cheech from cheating off me.
I don't need to cheat off you, bro.
Yeah, okay.
Don't you worry about me.
All right, let's kick it off. Okay, so question number one, and I'm not going to give you guys multiple choice. Okay, I did for some people. I will for some questions, but not for all of them. In general, I gave multiple choice options at the Striper Fest one. I'm not going to do this for you guys.
I think that you should ask if we're stumped. If we're stumped and we don't write an answer, then we get the multiple choice. But I'd like to do not multiple choice because knowing how to cheat on tests really well from my college days and high school days, the only reason I got through it, was if I saw a multiple choice, I wouldn't forget that. All right, I just know that's the answer. I don't know why, but that's the one. And he's going to remember it from Striper Fest.
I don't know about that.
Okay, well, regardless. The way we're going to do this is Matt and Anthony are both going to write down their answers after I ask the question, and then I'm going to evaluate who got it right or wrong. We'll give a little bit of time, so if you're playing along at home, you can see how much striped bass trivia you know.
Excuse me, Jim. What's the prize?
Oh, we didn't get there.
What's the winner get?
Wow.
Ooh. Well, you're catching me on the spot here. How about a crisp $5 bill? How's that sound?
Ooh.
Okay.
That'll play.
Okay, number one. What are the current regulations for striped bass from Maine to New Jersey? And now I'm asking specifically for the size limit. All right, that's enough time. Matt, let's see.
I'm showing you.
Oh, no, you can read it. Read it.
Okay, I said 28 inches to less than 31 inches.
Correct.
28 inches to 31 inch slot, one fish.
All right, very good. So
about
both
that?
of
He
you
said-
got that one correct. I would hope you would.
He didn't say less than 31 inches, though.
But it's close enough for government work here, okay?
What a dick.
Who, me?
No, him.
Trying to win $5.
So that was the warm-up question. Now, this category is striped bass biology and taxonomy.
Oh.
Question 2. What family... Oh, I do have to give you the context. I have to give you the multiple choice.
Yeah,
for
we
this
can
one.
we can go
Okay.
back and forth.
So what family of fishes do striped bass belong to? A, Persidae, the perches. B, Maranidae, temperate basses. C, Serranidae, sea basses and groupers. Or D, Centrarchidae, sunfishes and black basses.
You have your answer, Matt?
I do.
I'm going to go with B, Jim.
Correct?
B, Maranidae.
All right. Both of you guys are correct. Which northeast fish is most closely related to stripers? I am always harping on this around the office. You guys both better know this.
This is multiple choice?
No,
Okay.
this is not multiple choice.
Most closely related.
Which northeast fish, in the scheme of fish?
Wow. I might have my first stumping here.
Come on.
Bonus time.
I'm going to need pens down here.
Oh.
Matt?
That was quick. I'm going to say white perch, Marone Americana.
I should have said that.
What did you say?
I wrote down weak.
Weak fish?
No. My answer's weak.
Well, it's incorrect. So, correct. Marone Americana, the white perch, is the most closely related to striped bass. Even it is not actually a member of the perch family. It's a member of the temperate bass family. So white perch, white bass are the three species in that family, the temperate bass family in the United States. And we do a lot of white perch fishing this time of year, so I'm disappointed you didn't know that.
Should have known that.
If you look closely at them, you see the similarities. The high dorsal fin, the fin structure is the same, and then you have the similar lateral line to them, kind of similar looking head. If you take a close look at a white perch, you can see the similarity to a striped bass. All right, what cousin of the striped bass is a popular surf casting target in Ireland and Great Britain?
This episode of the On the Water podcast is sponsored by our friends at Old Town Canoe and Kayak. I love kayak fishing, and to be honest, there's no place in the world that I would rather be than fishing on my Old Town Big Water pedal kayak. The Old Town Sportsman lineup includes paddle, pedal, and power-driven kayaks in a range of sizes and setups, including Old Town's newest kayak, the ePDL Plus. This is the fishing kayak version of an e-bike. It looks like the regular PDL drive, but it has a lithium battery assist that lets you pedal faster and with less effort. You could choose the level of assistance, or you can even let the battery do all the work and go into cruise control. What I love about fishing from the ePDL Plus is that it greatly expands your options, so you can go further, you can get there faster, and you can explore new waters. As a striper fisherman, it's allowed me to fish outflows in areas with heavy current, the places where stripers feed, and places that I wouldn't have the leg power to fish in a traditional kayak. Old Town kayaks are still manufactured, rigged, and tank tested at the Old Town factory in Maine. Check them out, and I think you'll find that the quality of a Maine-built Old Town kayak can't be beat.
I'm going to Ireland in April, so hoping to tie into one.
Are you going to have a chance to do it?
I'm gonna try. I don't know. It's for a buddy's bachelor party.
What will you be fishing for?
Don't fall for that. He's trying to get your answer.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
pens
Well,
down.
I already wrote down an answer, so I'm technically the winner already. But
Okay, what Cheech, go first.
White bass.
Incorrect.
European sea bass.
European sea bass, correct. They look just like a striper. They look identical to it, except there's no stripes.
Striperless striper.
Very cool. Striperless striper.
Mass DMF put one on their cover one year.
That's right. They did.
Yeah.
They did put one on the cover.
And I was visioning that, being like, I know what that is. What's the name for it? And couldn't come up with it.
Ireland is one of the great places to catch them. They were also they're popular throughout France. They're different from stripers in the way that they're not anadromous. They spawn offshore. I know just a little bit about them, but I know they also don't get as big, nearly as big. A schoolie striped bass would be the size of like a really nice,
right? Like a
European sea
10-pounder is a big one, I think.
bass.
Right?
There are people that like you can connect to on the who would love this.
I follow a guy, Bass Fishing Ireland. I think his name's Cormac Walsh, so I'm gonna hit him up and see what's going on.
That is high on my bucket list. Is go back to the motherland. I went to Ireland with my parents when I was 18 and I stayed out all night in Galway.
Dad tried to disown you.
No, he was so upset. I can't because they didn't know where I was. I couldn't figure. I ran out of money, and then I had to take a cab home. And my dad's waiting for me outside the hotel. He goes, "You ruined my life. You're not ruining my vacation." And that was one of the great Big Jim quotes of all time. I don't think I really ruined his life. But
I haven't been over there since I was 3 years old, but I do have family over there. And actually, for a Christmas gift, my family got me like one of those like things that you can do online where you're like you get like a very small plot of land, and now technically I'm a lord in Ireland. So for the duration of this, you guys have to call me Lord Matt Haeffner.
I won't. I'll continue to call you assistant to the editor.
Right.
So Matt Haeffner has 2 correct answers. Matt has 4 so far in our striper trivia.
How many questions are there, Jim?
I forget.
I hope there's,
I
hope
actually
there's several more.
This is the PowerPoint presentation. I haven't looked at this since Striper Fest. Here's I actually put some facts about the European sea bass on this, but they do eat sand eels and small crustaceans, not unlike our stripers.
I should have just went with Branzino.
I think it's the same thing. I think they have them in Italy too. I excluded your people from this.
Yeah, you usually do that.
How long do striped bass live? This is question 4.
Oh no.
Give me an up to. Striped bass live up to. This is the widely accepted answer. I did a fair amount of research, fair amount of Googling. Research is a fancy word for that.
I should know this. And I don't think I
I have
do.
a chance to come back a little bit here, Jim.
Chance to regain some ground. All right. Pens down. Cheech, go first.
Up to 20 years.
That's what I put.
Up to 30 years. Up to 30 years, they say striped bass can live
I
until.
don't know why I had 24 in my head, but that felt like very old. But
I was going to go with 23, but I figured 20 was safe.
23.
It would be very specific. Up to 30 years is what they say striped bass can live until. Interestingly enough, we were just talking about fish ages. We didn't cover it on the last podcast, but when we fished with Captain Tom Daff, and he talked about they aged one of the big tog he caught, one of the record tog, and it was only 16 years. So I think it was a 20-some pound tog that was 16 years old. And tog are one of those that we were always like, oh, that's a 40-year-old fish.
Right.
But they grow so quickly down there in Cape May that 16 years old. Because
Yeah, longer
you've got a
growing
longer
season,
growing
right?
season.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
up here where the water temperature gets really cold early, they kind of slow down
I
their
just thought they
feeding.
were-
They're feeding more heavily year-round off Cape May than they are off, say, New England or even northern New Jersey. But this is striper trivia, not tog trivia.
Okay.
What are the 3 major spawning areas for our migratory striped bass here in the northeast U.S.?
In the U.S.?
In the U.S., 3 major spawning areas for our migratory striped bass. Now, I know they're smaller ones. They spawn in a lot of different rivers, but which are the ones that make the largest contribution to the fish that we're catching out in the coast, in the ocean? All right, I'm going to start off with Matt this time.
Excuse me. I said Chesapeake Bay, Delaware River, Hudson River.
That is... Cheech, tell me.
Shit. I said Chesapeake, Hudson, Roanoke.
Oh, Roanoke River. Interesting you said that. That may come up a little bit later, but it is unfortunately incorrect for my purposes here. So, Matt, another correct answer. 5-2 there. So, Chesapeake Bay, it's estimated that contributes, at least in Massachusetts, up to 75% of the striped bass we see up here in Massachusetts. Hudson River, another big contributor. Delaware River as well.
Roanoke, not so much.
Typically, I think they're resident fish. They don't really leave the sounds. Striped bass records. Okay, here's one. It's going a little bit deeper.
I like it.
Number 3. This is like question
Doesn't
8.
sound right, yeah.
Whatever. Doesn't matter what number it is. What was the weight of the largest recorded striped bass? In parentheses, not the IFGA world record. If you Googled what was the biggest striped bass ever recorded, this is the number you would see.
Okay.
All right.
103 pounds?
Okay, Cheech has 103.
I said 96.
96. Okay, it is 125 pounds.
What?
Caught in the 1890s in a net off North Carolina. Now, of course, you probably didn't have the Division of Weights and Measures coming down and certifying that scale back then, but that's the number that's out there as the largest striped bass. 96 pounds is like the largest one in recent, in
Caught by
modern
rod and reel
times.
or something?
No, it was electroshocked up in the by the Maryland DNR. It was either
underwhelming.
96 or 92, but a 90-plus pound striper they electroshocked up weighed, and that's the biggest one that in modern times that
Okay.
people have seen.
I knew it was an old-timey net fish over 100 pounds, but
Does he get credit for being closer?
No,
I should.
All right.
no, this isn't horseshoes.
No, that's what. Okay. Keeping my lead.
Okay, there's a multiple choice. This is the one I had the most fun with. Which of the following Charlies? So there's back up. Let me start over. There are 3. There's a tie for the state record in Massachusetts, a 3-way tie, 73 pounds for the striped bass. Which of the following Charlies does not hold a Massachusetts state record for striped bass? 2 of the people are named Charlie, who are part of that 3-way tie for the Massachusetts state record striper. Multiple choice. A, Charles Church. B, Charlie Kelly. C, Charles Montgomery Burns. D, Charlie Cinto.
can you repeat the question
Yeah.
one
it
more
was
time?
A little worded weird.
It was worded perfectly. Which of the following Charlies does not hold a Massachusetts state record for striped bass? A, Charles Church. B, Charlie Kelly. C, Charles Montgomery Burns. Or D, Charlie Cinto. There's multiple correct answers in this
Oh, okay.
right here.
How the hell is there multiple correct answers? All right.
What did you write?
CMB.
I said Charles Montgomery Burns and Charlie Kelly.
Correct. That is correct. Yeah, Charles Church caught a 73-pound striped bass off, I believe, Pasque Island or maybe Cuttyhunk in like 1913. Charlie Cinto caught a 73-pound striper on a Goo Eyes plug off Cuddy Hunk in the late 1960s. I want to say 67. But Charlie Kelly is, of course, from one of my favorite shows. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Charles Montgomery Burns, Mr. Burns from The Simpsons.
I thought we were picking one Charlie to eliminate, but whatever.
Oh, okay, you both got it right.
I don't know about that.
You both got it right.
You asked for one
Yeah,
Charlie.
50%.
You asked for one Charlie.
Oh,
if
you didn't like the question, then that's a whole nother issue. Who holds the current world record for striped bass? How big was it, and when was it caught? I will accept month and year, or just year. Just give me hit me approximately with when it was caught. It doesn't have to be the exact date. But who holds the record? How big was it? When was it caught?
Do you want length measurements as well?
Just give me the weight.
What a douche.
And it could be a round weight. It doesn't have to. You don't have to give
You
me
want
the
the
ounces.
angler's foot size, Jim?
Well, you wore a size 12 shoe, size 12 deck boot. I don't actually know that. All right, Matt, you go first.
I said it's held by Greg Myerson, caught in 2008, 81 pounds.
Myerson, 81.88 pounds, caught in August.
Of what year? At least give me the year.
Oh. I thought you said what month?
I say it could be the month and the year, or just the year.
It all bleeds together. 2000.
I think I got the year
I
right.
have no idea.
Okay, you're both wrong. You got Myerson and the weight of the fish correct. August 4th, 2011. So not 2008.
Bummer.
I got the month right.
There's no way you're going to know this one. I don't know why I even ask this. Which of the following was found in the stomach of the world record striped bass caught in 2011? This is multiple choice. A, clear nose skate. B, menhaden. C, nothing. D, schoolie striped bass. All right, Cheech.
D nothing.
Clear nose skate.
Correct. Matt Haeffner is correct. It had a clear nose skate in it. Once they get to like a certain size, nothing is safe from a big striper. I mean, guys in the Long Island inlets used to talk about how they would catch, 40 and 50 pound bass that had winter flounder and skate stacked in there like a short stack of pancakes.
Just vacuums.
Yeah, Striper Fest study sessions are paying off.
There you go.
I actually did not remember that one. I just took a wild guess.
Who held the world record striped bass before Greg Myerson? Anybody know that one?
Yep.
Oh, no. It's that tip of the tongue thing.
I think I can get.
All right,
give
go
you the
ahead,
year
Anthony.
Too. Al
blew it.
McReynolds.
I blew it. I got nothing.
Cheech got it. Albert McReynolds caught a 78-pound, 8-ounce striped bass on September 21st, 1982. In Atlantic City. We were just there. Oh,
Yep.
Oh, that's an unfair advantage.
No, I knew that. I've never forgotten that name. I've known that my whole life. He
So-
caught it on a Rebel minnow, was
What
it?
was the
Rebel
jetty?
Wind Cheater. It was the Vermont Avenue Jetty in
Right,
Atlantic City.
of course.
Cheech and I were just playing blackjack at Ocean's Casino, which pretty much overlooks that jetty. I've gone and visited it. There's a million stray cats around it at the bottom of that street.
It's on par.
What did you do when you visited it? I'm just curious because I could picture some sort of weird Jim Fee ritual.
I lit a candle. Lit a candle. I prayed to Al.
This is a
and
shrine.
said, please let me catch a 50-pounder. Striped bass history and folklore. Okay, which of the following states does not have a native population of striped bass? Is it Florida, Louisiana, California, or North Carolina?
Florida, North Carolina, Louisiana. Was there another one?
Florida, Louisiana, California, or North Carolina? All right, Matt.
California.
Cheech.
Florida.
California. California does not have a native population of striped bass. Has a very strong introduced population of striped bass. Florida has a native population in the St. Johns River. Louisiana has a small population in the Mississippi that's native. California, those fish all came from the Navesink River in New Jersey. They were carted across country by train in the 1800s.
Trick question. He said native. I didn't catch it.
What town proclaims itself the striped bass capital of the world? Incorrect.
Pathetic. He doesn't know this.
All right.
I just
We have to let him go.
drawing a complete blank.
Montauk.
No, it's somewhere in North Carolina, and I forget the name of the town.
Oh!
It's the rockfish capital of the world.
Bit of a trick question. Bit of a trick question there. It is the rockfish capital of the world. It's in Weldon, North Carolina, on the banks of the Roanoke River. I thought you were going to get this one.
Montauk's the surf casting
Yeah.
capital of the world.
So you can
I'm
rescind
an
your movement to
idiot.
fire me now.
So I
Oh, I know.
I have
could be able to
been
pay
there.
them $5.
I've been to the rockfish capital of the world, not to fish. I was there driving through to Key West to party boat fish with my friend Jerry Sullivan, but it's just off 95. We stopped in, we got some barbecue there, and we visited. There's a giant sign with a massive striped bass sculpture saying Weldon, NC, rockfish capital of the world. And it's a bold claim.
Yeah.
It is. There's good fishing there. It's river fishing for smaller, schoolie-sized striped bass. Very popular. Lefty Cray and all the fly fishing luminaries, Flip Pallet, they would go there to fish for stripers, probably because it was the closest place to get to them from Florida, and it really put this place on the map. But those fish aren't really migratory, and I guess that fishery's hitting hard times now because they're beginning to stock the Roanoke River with hatchery stripers to try to boost that back up. We ran a story a few years ago. I'll try to post this online. For the podcast goes live, by Joe Kane, who wrote, he called it Exit 1 on the Striped Bass Highway, and that is Weldon, North Carolina. He fished there, and it was pretty cool. But anyhow, that is the rockfish capital of the world. I'm just going to give one more question because this could drag on forever. It's taking longer than I thought because you dum-dums are getting so many wrong.
Oh, come on.
Which of the following is not a nickname for striped bass? We're going to end on this one. Tide runner, rockfish, squid hound, or line sider.
Oh, Jesus.
Nice, easy one to end on. All right.
Tide runner.
Tide runner is
Correct. Tide runner is the correct answer. That is a nickname for a big weak fish, specifically a weak fish over 30 inches. If we're going to get into the nickname for the big fish, nicknames have to be fish over a certain size. We've already we've taken heat for calling sub 10-pound Fluke doormats in the past. So tide runner, let's establish that at 30 inches or better. Guys, final score, we all know where it is. Matt, 9, Cheech, 5. So, Matt, you were the superior striped bass angler. I don't have it on me. I'm going to have to give you an IOU for that crisp
That's all right.
$5 bill. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. We're going to kick it over to Doug and DJ Toback, talk about some fluke fishing and tuna fishing off New York. Welcome to another episode of the On the Water Podcast. Beautiful. Let's go! Welcome to the On the Water Podcast. I'm Jimmy Fee. This week, I've got Captain Doug Toback and DJ Toback with Corazon Charters. And last time I saw you guys, we were it was kind of a beautiful August day. And right now, it's like pretty much the opposite of that, you know. So we were in Freeport, New York, back in August, and man, we had a great day of fishing together. Captain Doug, tell us a little bit about Corazon Charters.
Okay, great. We're based in Freeport, New York. We've been based there pretty much our entire charter career, but the boat moves. So that boat has been out in Montauk. I go where the fish are, right? We've been fortunate though for the last 5 years that Freeport has had pretty much, for me, the best fishing in the strikeable area. So that's great. We built the boat during COVID. We went from a 40-air and got lucky, bought the Westlake that was out in Montauk, right? That boat had a lot of history out there. And
you told us that was kind of your COVID project where the two of you would, you had a little time on your hands. Now, you were in high school at the time?
I was in high school.
And so everything went remote then. So as you guys were working the boat, I think you told me you had the laptop set up as, so how long did it take, beginning to end on it?
So we were fortunate. Typically a project of rehabilitating a boat. We took the boat down to the studs and reconfigured a lot of it. That's typically a multi-year project. We did it in 9 months. The way we were able to do it so quickly is, number one, we had the help and support of our friends over at Baldwin Harbor Marine Center. They're great. They were able to do mechanical and glass work on site. Both Steve with his sons, Steve and Billy and Mike, and Eddie, who handled the mechanical part. They they had a shift from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then DJ and I would come in from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day. So there was 2 shifts on the boat, and Steve and crew did all of the work that you could either see or go on fire. That was the rule, and then DJ and I did the rest. So we did a lot of the first we did a lot of the demo on the boat, and then when we were rebuilding it, that's what we handled.
So before you wanted to fix it up, what about the boat in particular made you say, this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for?
35 Duffy.
Yeah,
that's it. You know, it was that. So I'm a fan of fishing on a Downey's platform for what we do. And the 35 Duffy is pretty much the diamond of the fleet of Downey's boats in that size class. So that's really why we went after that boat. We got lucky. I didn't really think I was going to find a boat like that. You know, when we were looking, it was it came up and it needed a little bit of relove on it, and we certainly put it into it, and it came out. It's so awesome.
It's a great boat, man. And that particular day we were out there, there weren't many other boats out there. It was one of those, we had the end of, I think, a heavy south wind. We had, the seas were big, but they were dying throughout the day. And man, it was kind of a lonely ocean at first.
I'm going to give you a little transparency of what happened going into that trip. So the plan, of course, you know how plans go. Like Mike Tyson said, yeah, it's a great plan until you get punched in the face, and that's the end of that. And that's pretty much what happened to us. We had 10 straight days booked going into our trip, and we were ready to be completely dialed in. We had a primary day, and we had our contingency day.
Yeah, we had the weather day, just in case.
So what happened going into that trip is we had 11 days of brutal southwest wind. We were totally grounded dockside for 11 days. And there was a question whether we were going to pull our day off because I knew it was going to be super windy. I'm like, maybe I can tuck along the Jersey coast. But and then I saw it was going to give us some relief second half of the day. I'm like, we can get away with it, but I'm like, I know the boat's going to be able to handle it. So that's also another reason why we weren't drifting earlier in the day also as well. I had to keep the boat moving, because it would have been a little bit uncomfortable.
It was rough out there when we first got out there, but we started out bonito trolling. And man, last year there was just one of the best bonito runs in recent memory for me. And that was true up here in New England. They showed up in late June and didn't leave until mid-November. And then we were down there, and I mean that was the most bonito I've ever caught in a day. I mean, part of it, I think, definitely the rough weather had them feeding hard at the surface, but I don't think DJ was setting the lines out, and you like you were setting a 4-rod bonito trolling spread for them, and I don't think you got 2 of them out before
I think we might have gotten 1 out before we had 1 on, and then we got the second one out, just one after another. Yeah, that was insane.
That light tackle trolling is a lot of fun too, especially late summer, water temperature's approaching its peak, so you don't you're probably going to get bluefish, bonito, maybe an albie, but there's always some X factors out there. And I remember we had one knockdown where you're like, this is it. This is the bluefin. Because that happens, right?
That's what we were really digging for. And that would have been great to pull that off. And we've done it on a couple of our trips where we'll be doing a Fluke trip. I'm like, we'll troll for a little while. DJ knows how to run the cockpit, so we can turn the cockpit over pretty quickly. So a lot of times, not a lot, but sometimes we'll get that 50-pound class bluefin, but we're using such light tackle. It's great. It is great.
And what really stuck out to me were your spreader bars. So I think of light tackle bonito trolling. You had the feathers, which are a classic. We run a lot of small deep diving plugs up here, but you had these little. Were they custom or were they?
They're Chattelores. They're Chattelore micro bars. They're 24-inch bars. Jason at Chattelore makes them all, and there's actually a story behind some of those bars. Right, the bars are great, so we use them, as you saw, for inshore. We'll take them even offshore if there's small sand eels that the bluefin are on, and we're fishing for school bluefin because they'll definitely work offshore. But this year, what we had is that crazy striped bass bite at the end of the year, and there was sand eels everywhere, and they were on top. So while popping plugs work well, when you have 6 people on the boat, when we're chartering, they don't work great, right? Because there's a lot of hooks that are flying around. So I looked it over at DJ, and I'm like, put out a spreader bar, and he did what every son does to their father and looks at me and says, that doesn't make any sense. We're not going to do it. And I'm like, all right, we're going to put cleaning the boat up on this. And we put out a spreader bar. DJ, I'll get joy in you telling me what happened when we put a spreader bar out.
That was a nice way of putting it. I mean, I was pretty against putting a spreader bar out. I was throwing a little bit of a fit. I'm not gonna lie about it.
Quantum is back and saltier than ever with the new Benchmark and Strive saltwater spinning reels. Last season, I used the Benchmark in the surf from Cape Cod to New Jersey, catching bass and blues on my 6000 model and albies and fluke on my 2500 model. The seal lock protection and IPX6 water resistance rating kept the reel performing flawlessly through every splash, spray, and accidental dunking. The best-in-class carbon fiber drag stayed smooth and put the boots to the fish. I cannot wait to break these reels back out when the stripers return in the spring. Also available is the new Quantum Myth High Modulus Carbon Fiber Rods. Built with Sea Guide corrosion-resistant guides for friction-free line flow and premium cork handles, these inshore rods pair perfectly with the Benchmark and Strive reels. To learn more about Quantum's triumphant return to the saltwater scene, visit quantum.com. Quantum, tested beyond limits.
And then we put the spreader bar out, and we had one fish. Like, pretty instantly, we watched the thing take the spreader bar out of the water. It was like insane. I've never seen a bass hit like that. The came, whacked the spreader bar, and then the next time we put it out, you see the fish come up and hit it, and we didn't know what it was. Freaking dumped. We got dumped pretty heavily, and it ended up being like a 50-pound bass that we ended up bringing up on a spreader bar.
That's crazy.
And we were running them right off the back of the boat, and we were watching them hit. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Man, one nice thing about Freeport, too, is you guys have had a great fall striper run the last couple of years, but it's situated in such a place where you've got great tuna fishing, great bottom fishing, good striper, really good striper fishing. And, I mean, there's a lot of history in Freeport in terms of, I mean, that's been a commercial fishing hub for over a century. It was shell fishermen and commercial fishermen. Now it's kind of veered toward recreational fishermen. Do you live around, have you lived in Freeport your whole life, or?
So we've been in Long Island our whole life, half Queens until I was an adult, and then Long Island. And in this area, Freeport, there for about 30 years. We live in the one town over, we're 5 minutes away from the boat. So there is a commercial component to it. It's not as prevalent as it used to be. There used to be a lot of the clam boats used to be in the area. There used to be a lot of draggers in the area. Probably shoaling in the inlet, chase some people away as well. It's not the friendly inlet that it may have been in the past.
So you run out of Jones Inlet, right?
Yeah, we
I haven't. I think that might have been one of two times I've gone out of that inlet, and it seems fun. I grew up with Great Egg Harbor Inlet in New Jersey, so I've seen some ugly stuff. Up here, it's all little harbors. It's all so simple. From New England, guys don't understand how scary it can be just to get past the inlet some days.
So there's a sandbar that moves around. It's dredged every once in a while being 7 years or whenever. But that the sandbar, when the sandbar fills in, it moves around on a weekly basis, which makes it challenging when it's low tide on a hard southwest wind. Right, that's when you hear people talk about the inlet. That's really where the captains are doing their thing and figuring out how to keep everybody safe and still get out and have the opportunities that we need to.
Oh, definitely. So you've been in Freeport. How long have you been a charter captain?
I just start to age myself and make me feel miserable that I'm in my mid-50s. I'm just kidding. I've been a captain over 25 years, I would say. Yeah, I've had that ticket for over 25.
And before that, now I saw this on your website, and you talked about it a little bit when we were on the boat. Previously, your previous job was a lot of data analysis.
I have a technology background, so I wrote applications and did a lot of data analysis as well, right? So that I've carried over certainly into my fishing life.
That's what So it's kind of directly applicable to like a lot of those skills with, we talked about this for an article that ran in our January issue about finding your favorite fluke spots and how you do that. And you said, somebody hooks a fish, I place a waypoint. Anything happens, I place a waypoint, and then throughout the course of the day, I'm monitoring. You'll explain it better than me. But.
So it's pretty interesting. I probably spend more time thinking about fishing than fishing, and and I do that with a lot of aspects of my life where you can really become extremely skilled without actually getting the reps in. You know, that metrics of 10,000 hours to become an expert. You don't necessarily need to be doing the thing for 10,000 hours. So what I'll do is I'll think a lot. All right, so where are my gaps? And you have to be pretty reflective and understand where your gaps are. So if I think I have a gap in an area, I'll spend my time trying to figure out what I need to do to close that gap, right? And that's sort of the data analysis comes into that. First of all, taking inventory of myself. What do I need to improve on? If I'm taking a look at, I want to become a better fisherman. I want to become a better fluke fisherman. Okay, what's working? What's not working? What are the critical factors that make a successful fluke trip? Finding where the biomass is, listening to what's going on from my peers, but not over-indexing on what they say, right? Which the data comes in. It's like, what do I know about myself? What information have I gathered? And actually, I spent a lot of time talking to DJ about it, whether he likes it or not. We'll spend time just going back and forth because he happens to be pretty analytical as well, and just taking all the different factors. So, you know, fluke fishing, for instance, how many feet of water, where do they collect, how do I need to move the boat, how am I going to pull the fish out of the area, how do I know when the bite is on and when the bite is off? And I think about successes, I think about things then I think about the things I haven't thought about, right? Because if you want to catch fish in an atypical way and have atypical results being the atypically better results.
Yeah.
You can't always do what everybody else is doing, especially if everybody else is not really doing that well, right? Because go to the same reef, fishing the same rigs, fishing the same times, etc. Right? So we're constantly trying to find the edges and open up new opportunities for ourselves. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And what I noticed about the fluke fishing with you is that the drifts were super short. I mean, there was no, I've been on trips where we get to the place, get to the reef, and a half hour later we're pulling the lines. Some of your drifts I think were less than 10 minutes. All of them I think were less than 10 minutes.
Some of them might have been
less than 45
seconds. Some of them, depending on how small the piece was.
But you knew that you're like, if you haven't dropped by now, don't drop. A couple times you said so.
So I cut my teeth striped bass fishing. Right, striped bass fish my whole entire life. We have the IGFA records that my daughters had, junior records had when we were younger. We were all younger then. And what I learned striped bass fishing is that I would actually fish rocks. If there was a particular rock that I knew that the fish were set up in, I would fish that rock, and I would know that, hey, the fish are set up on the downside of that rock, the downside of that dip, and they're not any further. And they're not before it. They're just on that rock, especially in our area. Though when I was out in Montauk, I would do the same thing and catch our fish. Why keep on drifting? Pick the boat up, repeat the drift, and get us right over the rock. And that's where I really learned how to hone my craft. So when we fish, we are capitalizing on where the fish are. All right, and we do that with our guests on the boat too, as well. And as people fish with us, they get better and better at it. But with any fish, we do it for tuna fish. If we find a tuna fish in an area, we hammer that area until the fish are gone. Sea bass, we hammer the little area. Fluke, if we're catching fluke, as soon as we have one or two fish right in the same area that are good, we hammer that area. And the way we hammer it is I'll go directly over it. I'll go 5 feet to the right, 5 feet to the left. I'll start as a tide moves. Sometimes the fish will push back a little bit. We'll be aware of that. And then when it's done, when I see it slowing up, I'll take a look at what's going on. And I'll be like, okay, what is going on? Where am I on the tide? Did we just wipe the area out? Let me try 15 feet off to see if I could find another area that I have that I know, which you mentioned before. Every time we catch a fish, every time we find a piece, I have a waypoint. So it looked like every area is mapped out. I'm not blindly fishing any area. I know exactly what it looks like. I know where I've had the fish before. So I'll hit another area that I know that I've had fish. We start catching fish again. Great, there's fish there. There's no fish that I'm catching. It's like, all right, I'm in the middle of a tide. Nothing is going to change. Time to move. So one of the things you may have noticed when we were fishing together is we were either fishing or moving, and there was a lot of moving that was going on, right? But when the fishing was happening, we were fishing.
Oh yeah, yeah. We kept doing these short drifts over the air, and like, I mean, I think Adam Eldridge, who's one of our producers here, he counted. He said, "You guys caught." I forget what the total. It was like the amount of fish that it would sound like I was lying. I know we caught a ton of then on top of it a lot of fluke. And these were all over these tiny little structures. And like you said, we'd have maybe a minute in the zone, and then we'd be beyond it. How do you find those spots in the first place? Are they were we fishing over natural bottom or wrecks or?
Yes to all.
Yeah.
All that. We're fishing over everything. Again, based on when I was striped bass fishing, right? It's all based on all those hours that I put in finding the different places where the bass are, and it taught me to be super observant of what's going on, right? Especially because the striped bass community back in the day was super secretive, right? So I was lucky enough to get into the secret striped bass society, but I had to earn my stripes before it happened. So there was a lot of basically self-farming that I had to do, and that taught me, as soon as I see something different, mark it. Right, and I'll mark things differently in my machine. I'll mark things looks good versus I know it's good. I'll flip it over after a trip. I know if I caught fish there, I'll change the waypoints. So getting back to the data background, electronics. I'm lucky enough to be on the pro staff of Simrad. Right, I was using Simrad before I got on their pro staff, but I know how to use my electronics well. And one of the things that I've learned with electronics, they've changed our game, especially with the stack that we use on the boat. It's great. You have to, though, ask your electronics a question, right? You have to say, where is 45 feet of water with rock structure with some bait on it? And then move the boat, and it'll answer you and give that to you, right? You can't, though, ask your electronics, find me the fish.
Yeah.
And just blindly, well, a lot of people think that I have a fish finder. Let me go around until I see some bait, right? You have to collect your data, and then target the area that you think that they're there. Ask your machine, hey, does the conditions exist the way I thought they exist? The machine will talk back to you, both show it to you on the screen. And if it says no, not here, then you go, then what else? Where else should I be? And that's the pre-think that I do. I'm prepared. Like, I've got plan A, B, C, D, all the way down to Z. One of the things you may have noticed, DJ is so good at running the cockpit that I'll be in the wheelhouse. I'm thinking about what the next move is always. DJ is handling what's going on in the moment and making sure that everybody's super, super effective. And that's why there's such a high value on the mates as well.
So, I mean, the father-son dynamic, too. I'm sure you lean on DJ a little bit harder than you would maybe somebody not related to you.
About. All lies. We haven't been talking to DJ before the podcast here.
But that's got to be fun. So you, where do you go to school? I know you're in a maritime academy.
Yeah,
right?
I go to school over at SUNY Maritime, underneath the Throgsneck Bridge.
So was it those days kind of working on the boat that led you in that direction? Or did you know you wanted to go toward?
Yeah, that kind of what it was. When we built up the Corazon over COVID, that kind of opened my eyes. Like, this is really cool. Let's see if I can scale this up and make it into a career. And I found out there's a huge industry, and I love it over there. I mean, it's a really cool industry. I get to work on really big ships, and I'm gaining a ton of knowledge that I can carry over to our personal boat.
That's great, man. And then the off season, well, not the off season, but the when you're home from school, you're working on the boat with Dad. Man,
yeah.
So
it's been a little while since I had to do my own oil change.
That's not so bad, man.
It's
a good
so
gig.
awesome. It is great. No lie, I might push maintenance off a little bit till I know. I'm like 2 weeks out. I might stretch it 2 weeks.
Yeah,
before
I come home for the weekend, and all of a sudden it's, hey, are you doing anything today? Go down to the boat. I need oil change, this, that.
Oh man, that's not bad.
It's awesome. It is great.
So how early did you begin? Like, at what age did you begin kind of going out and working the boat?
Working the boat or fishing?
Like, at what point were you acting as the mate on
The mate.
charters? Yeah.
So I started working with my dad once we built up our new boat after COVID. So I'm pretty new to the whole mating thing. I've been fishing my entire life. We have pictures of me in a playpen on the boat, on our last boat. That we built up the new boat, and we decided we were going to work it, and it was almost full time from there.
I remember you telling me about that. Yeah, fishing's always been a family activity as well.
DJ and I actually were talking about this on our way up here. I apparently have fished a lot in my life. I would, even when we were younger and I had my other job, I really had 2 full-time jobs. I was pin hooking and chartering and perfecting my craft. So I come home from the day job and I would go fishing that night. Matter of fact, I have a story around that. I was like working in Manhattan in an office, and it would be like Fight Club. Don't really mix it too. I don't want to let everybody know that I'm out drilling it till all hours of the night, and then bright-eyed and bushy-tailed the next morning. So one of my buddies who let me into the secret striped bass society, it turned into, let's wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and fish the early tides. I'll get you on the Long Island Railroad for the 7 a.m. train. So I'd wake up. My wife was not super happy about this, but wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and we would go fishing. Tomahawk the fish. It'd be great. I would go into whatever bathroom the marina had, and that's a stretch to call it a bathroom, and wash up the best that I thought I was washed up pretty good. Put my suit on. My buddy would drive me to the train and drop me off, and I'm in a conference room one day, and it's warm, and I roll my sleeves up, and my arms are down like this, right? And we're talking, and I just go to roll my arm over to get a piece of paper, and across my arm is striped bass blood, all across the inside of my arm, in a conference room. It was. I had to kind of just turn it around, be the Fight Club guys, they had the black eyes. So, I've got stuff all. So it was pretty funny. So I was forced. So spending all this time full circle to the family, the way we spent time together, the best way to spend time with me is to jump on the boat. And we would be on these slammer striped bass bites. DJ would be in his crib. His sisters would be on the rods. And it was just, it's important. Family's super important to me, right? So one of the things that I've learned is if I want to do what I like, my family better be doing it with me, right? So I've definitely scaled down.
It definitely, if fishing's your activity and your family doesn't want to do it, it's going to limit your fishing time at the end of. So I do have a question for you, because I've got 3 young kids with let's call varying interest in fishing. Sometimes they're super into it, other times they don't want to be bothered by it. You mentioned your daughter had a junior world record. How did you kind of foster a love of fishing with your kids?
The way we did it is we made it super kid-centric, right? They rule the roost, right? And we made it so that they were always, when they were fishing, it would always bring back memories, and even the memories of the next day, of things that they normally aren't allowed to do. So I put them to bed in the clothes that they were going to wear the next day. Thing number one, that would tip my wife. They would hear, they would be giggling, and my wife would Doug, you can't, they got to wear pajamas. I'm like, no, they don't. We're good. So I put them in their clothes that they were going to wear the next day. Wake them up in the morning. When they were first times, I wouldn't wake up super early, but still early enough. Then we go to the local store. 7-Eleven is down by us, and they get to eat anything they want for breakfast. Can we eat candy? Yeah, eat some candy, grab some donuts. Again, my wife looking at me, I'm like, it's going to be fun, don't worry. And then when we go out, they really dictate what we're going to do. Let's go fishing. Hey, I want to go for a little bit of a boat ride now. And we would do that, and we would just keep it light, and would say, hey, I want to go in. We would go in and ice cream after the trip, right? And it just became that would be our thing. It would become just like a fun thing. And then we would progress what the fishing looked like. And all the kids were pretty much hardcore fishing by the time they were 6-7 years old. My youngest daughter, I was waking up. Because she's the youngest one, just following everybody. Although DJ is the youngest. I would wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and she would put in these like super long days. She's got some of the biggest striped bass in the family. She didn't get an IGFA record. Her 2 older sisters had it, but because we got knocked out and the fish started getting so big, it was like, all right, not your turn. I thought we were going to get one for her, but and even DJ would partake, but he was riding at that time on his older sister's coattails. She was ruling the roost.
Now, do your sisters still fish?
Not too much anymore. Actually, we kind of switched off. Like when we were really young, my sisters fished with my dad a lot. I wasn't really smart enough. They used to take off of school quite a bunch.
Oh, really?
So
Oh.
I wasn't really smart enough to take off from school. So they'd keep me in school. And then as I got a little bit older, the roles kind of reversed, and I started fishing more and more. And I took their roles.
I don't know about the not smart enough, but they were doing better in school than you were. But so that's a whole nother story about getting the kids on school days. So of course, there'd be a big bass bite going off. I know when there's great opportunities that were kid appropriate. That was the big thing. Like if the bites were huge and the kids don't have to sit there and wait, and they have that as a reference, right? That's what we're looking for. So again, hey, Diana, my wife, big bass bite on. I think I'm gonna take the kids fishing while they're school tomorrow. Yeah, that's why I'm telling you about it. No, the kids have to go to school, so I don't recommend this. But I'd wake up earlier than my wife, grab the kids, tell them not to make any noise.
That's an Amber Alert situation there, man.
I text her, got the kids, so don't worry. She wasn't super mad at me, but come back, the kids are all smiling. They're like, yeah. And then that whole thing progressed to the fact that one of our friends in a circle is a doctor, and my daughter, he'd be on the boat with us, and my daughter would be shaking him down for doctor's notes for the excused absences.
Those are you remember those though. I only ever got my dad wasn't a big fisherman, but he jailbroke me from school a couple times to fish just for me. You know what I mean? Like one time, like he grabbed me out of school. We're like, we'll go to Montauk for a couple days. Took a couple days off from school. That was our first time out there, and man, you remember that like that. It's such a cool because it is a little bit more special than being out there on the weekend when everybody's out there. So if you can give that opportunity, I could see that really kind of make it special for everybody. So
absolutely. So coming back to how do you make your kids want to do it? In the beginning, it's not so much about the fishing as much of them dictating the day. And this is the fun that you could have on the boat. This is the fun that you could have with your dad. The fun you could have with your mom. We would have my wife with us quite a bit as well. And she would play the dynamic a little bit, too, to make it even more funny that, you guys are doing something that, necessarily you shouldn't be doing.
You're getting away with something.
Yeah, exactly, which always makes it more. And that would escalate. Actually, you know what? I don't know if I 100% agree that all the girls aren't really fishing. So my youngest daughter works in a bait and tackle shop. She actually has been working in it that was her only job that she had, and she pretty much ran the infrastructure of the bait and tackle. She's now a junior in college. So when she came back for the summer, she definitely took a leadership position at a bait and tackle. But she ties our Fluke rigs, would do my shark rigs for me.
Oh, nice, man.
Yeah, it was great. And then
that's a far cry from not really fishing.
Yeah, it's her brother.
I like to think I'm the only one.
Yeah. And when tournament sharkfish, she's on the boat with us as well.
Oh, it's awesome.
So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, like when it comes to getting kids into fishing, I think there's a million ways you can turn them off it forever, but you can just introduce them to it. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't, but you can do your best not to give them a terrible experience. Yeah. And I did that to my wife. I tried because I wanted her to get into fishing, and she was it was in Jones Inlet from shore, and it's a good walk to that jetty. And then it was raining, but the fish were there. And she's like, "Can we go back to the car? Like I'm wet, and like it's cold. I just get." I'm like, "No, like we're catching all these bass and blues." She's fished a couple times since, but that like soured her on it for life. It was that kind of bad experience.
You just hit it. That is that you can't let the kids have that because then they won't want to go again, right? That was the big. It was always like if they wanted to go, we left when they were younger, and then when they got older. They realized, let me stick it out a little bit, right? It also helped too that we went up in size in boats a little bit, right? The story of how we how we went up in size in boats is pretty interesting. So I started out with a center console boat, and my oldest daughter would fish with me on that occasionally. And the way the year would lay out is I'd fish pretty hard in April, May, June, be pin hooking, also chartering out in Montauk. July and August, dedicated more to the family. I'd pull up a little bit. And then September to the end of the season, again, back to drilling it, chartering, pin hooking, etc. And this one year, the bluefin tuna came into that area that we were in, not the occasional, they were in. And July and August got white because the mahi-mahi were in too. It was crazy. It was awesome. We had a big southeast blow earlier in the year, and we were tomahawking these fish, and I was addicted. I should have probably gone to a meeting or something if they had it. It was all I could think about. And the fishing in the summer waned, and then it was time to bring the boat out to Montauk. I do my thing out there, chartering, rolled back into the fish move back west, brought the boat back there. End of the season, my wife looks at me and she says, "What's the difference between a single mother and me?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And she told me, "Either do I." And I'm like, okay. All right. So I'm like, I'm going to sell the boat. So I sold the boat, and I did what any other fisherman would do. I bought a bigger boat. I'm like, I've got the solution. We're going to get a bigger boat, and then we can start stuffing the kids on the boat. And that's how really that whole thing started. I was able to put, it was a 40-year. So I started chartering it more. I was able to put the playpen on non-charter days. And that boat fished really, really, really well. And that's really where we did a lot of the lion's share of the fishing. And then we bought the Duffy in COVID after we had totally outgrown that. Right.
And nice thing about a bigger boat too is, especially chartering, you're losing fewer days.
Yes.
Every time you go up, there's a couple of days that you might have canceled on your smaller boat. You can then fish there. So
it's the way we run the business. It's pretty interesting that you bring that out. You're right. We do have more latitude with the Duffy, especially for how well the Duffy fishes. But I don't hesitate in canceling a day for our guests. Most of the people that fish in our boat are fishing with us 2 to 5 times a year. So I need to make sure that when they're on the boat, it's a good day. And listen, honestly, if they're not going to have a great day fishing, they're going to be fishing with me on their next trip, right? I'd rather just make sure that every trip is good. So depending on how tight the wave period is and how big it is, we will. Like this year, I probably lost. It was a really windy year in the summer. I probably lost 35% of my book. I mean, we had the 10 days straight that we were done, and that happened a couple of times. And did it hurt? Sure, it hurt. But I need to make sure that our guests feel comfortable. We snuck out and did a little bit of commercial fishing. It was a little bit wild and woolly when we were doing it, but I certainly don't want to subject our guests to that. Like what we were out in that morning, that's the upper end of the limit. And if it was like that, and it was going to be like the entire day, we would have had a long discussion.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but luckily for us, it was tapering off, and by the end of the day, it was beautiful.
Yeah, and we knew that was happening, which is the reason why we went.
So, of the fish that you target, I know you talked about striper fishing. We've talked a little bit about fluke and bonito and tuna. What's the most part? What do people seek you out for? Your clients?
Good question. We have different pockets of people in the different circles that run with us. We're really good at fluke fishing, right? So we're trophy fluke fishing in August, and the people that are in the fluke circle know it, right? And we love doing it, right? It's great, and you don't have to be a super fluke sharpie, but if you really want the big fluke, and you know that we're going to put in the extra effort, and you know that we're well prepared. The boat is put together. Like in order to be successful, your boat's got to be in good shape. You got to be able to captain the boat. You have to do the pre-work to know where you're going to go. You have to have all your tackle ready. Then you actually do the thing, and then you have to have the post-mortem to review the day to make sure that you know what went right and what went wrong, to make sure that the next day is appropriate as well. There's a lot of things in there, and that's what people know that we're going to do all the time, and that definitely carries over into the fluke part. So they know that. They know us first for striped bass, I would say, right? Also, that was the first thing that people knew us for. But the thing about striped bass is interesting is that the striped bass fishing got so good in our area that the advantage of being a striped bass Sharpie was lost. We have had people in the environmental agencies let us know that the best striped bass fishing on the East Coast is in our area right now, year over year.
And it's man, it happens in the spring for you guys, and then it really happens the last couple falls. And you're right, like having an edge there, it's tough to have an edge when it's like, here's this football field size of bass, football field size school of bass just ripping up sand eels on the surface. I mean, anybody could go there. And
I actually chuckle a little bit when it's a little bit slower. It's like, all right, now I can do my thing and like dig the fish out, when it's a slower day. So what happened this year though is word is out that we've got really good fishing in our area, and we started getting really busy again with people coming in from out of the area, which is exactly what we wanted to happen. Right, and I work with my other charter captain friends that I have in the area. It's like, yeah, we're all going to work together here and just get this word out. So we've got the fluke, we've got the striped bass, we've got great sea bass fishing that has really come along in the last few years. This year, August, September was really good with sea bass fishing. It was really good.
now, do you do any of the winter sea bass trips?
So those are a little bit further offshore. They're like 70 miles offshore. It's cold and the days are short, and I'll refer them over to my buddies on the Nautical Mile who are on 70 to 100-foot boats.
Yeah.
Fishing there. Yeah, it's a little bit more sane to do that. But we'll fish sea bass. When the other fishing is slower, we'll fish the sea bass until we'll go until October. But I'll be honest with you, what's been happening is, number one, the striped bass fishing they've been showing up early. They've been showing up Columbus Day now, right? They never used to show up in Columbus Day. They used to show up Halloween, right? So now that's happening. And the money on top of that is we've got giant bluefin that are in there also. They've been coming in. So what we've been doing is we've been running split trips. It's absolutely crazy. We'll go giant fishing the first half of the day, and then we'll go striped bass fishing the second half of the day, and that's what we'll do in the fall. I look at DJ, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is crazy.
It's nuts.
That giant fishery just didn't exist 10 years ago, or they were there and people really weren't dialed into catching. But that seems to have them that close mixed in with the bass. I mean, we've seen the videos of guys surf fishing, seeing the bluefin rip through, off New Jersey or Long Island. So it's the ability to do both in one day is it's pretty cool.
Apparently, it's a historical fishery. It used to exist way back in the day. Somebody had given me a book, and sure enough, in the book are all these fishing clubs that used to target these giants, right? And then I remember vaguely a little bit in the 80s, some of my friends who were commercial fishermen were quietly, you'd hear about it every once in a while.
It was always the mud hole, I thought. As guys would go out to the mud hole,
Yeah.
and I would always hear the rumors that like they were catching them on schoolie stripers in December as they would go out there and they'd live line, 24-inch bass. That was in the early 2000s, but it was still a good run. I mean, it wasn't within sight of shore, in view of land.
So the mud hole runs pretty close to. It comes in on the end of it. It runs into Jersey, getting close to the harbor. And the fish actually aren't in. They're not always in the deep part. They come out now. They're coming out on the flats. So we're fishing in about 80 feet of water, 70, 80 feet of water that are on the flats of both sides of the mud hole. But what's also going on, if you take a look, there's a little line that runs off of that right across the western part of Long Island. So they'll come off of that mud hole and they'll run along over into Fire Island. And they're running back and forth from Fire Island along that line, right across Jones Inlet, right across Rockaway, right down Jersey when it's going on. So that's the way we could split our trips. And it's crazy, and we'll hook one in the morning, season's not open, we'll cut it off and let it go, and then go straight bass fishing. It doesn't even make sense. It's so cool. So that's another thing that we do. And then we're doing thresher fishing. We'll do that in June. So much fun. Another thing that's developed over the last 15 years with all the bait that's happened.
Seems to be quite a lot of threshers out there.
That's fun. That is great fun. And we're using light tackle. We use our Daiwa small 2-speed reels on that. That's a lot of fun. And then we're doing the tuna thing. We'll run out to the canyon. We'll do the mid-shore tuna. I do that in September and July. We do that. Those are the best months for that.
DJ, what's your favorite of all the fish you guys target throughout the season? What's your favorite one?
I think I'd have to say striped bass.
Okay.
Yeah, it's for me. It tends to be. I have that down to a science when it comes to the deck. As far as running the deck, the Fluke, I love. Personally, I love fishing for them. That's probably my favorite type of fishing. As far as working though, I like working the striped bass trips. It's a lot of fun, and almost every trip we're setting somebody's PR. Almost
awesome.
every single, like it's so much fun watching people get so excited to catch these huge fish.
Well, fluke fishing, can't imagine all the spearing and squid that you're scraping off the deck at the end of the trip too.
Yeah, and it's all dried up, and yeah.
So your August is your big fluke month. That's when you're running kind of offshore for them. What rig wise, what are you guys running? I mean, I know we did kind of popcorn rigs. We had a mix of stuff out there. Everybody had something different. But what's if you were going to come out with you in August, what would give me the best shot of catching my biggest ever fluke?
So we're pretty. One of the things that we do is we say pretty standard across the board with the rigs that we use, right? My philosophy is that the fish aren't really super. There's people that are going to disagree with what I'm going to say, and that's fine because
that's fluke fishing. Everybody.
Here we go. Here we go. I'm not. I don't believe that the fish for me are super color sensitive. Right, that maybe on the corners a little bit, maybe like 1 or 2 or 3, but it's more important to be over the fish, presenting the bait in a way that's enticing for the fish. So we use basically 2 rigs, 3 rigs. We use a high-low, the M3 high-low with a floating head. Right, we use that during the show, right? I'll tie some high lows myself if it's super sticky. But then when I have the fish located and I want to catch that big fish, I'll flip it over to the floating head because they outfish the regular high low just skirts that we use.
So why is that? What's good about the floating head versus the? You're
feel-
talking about basically like the high low rig. I've always used them with kind of light jig heads, 1/4 ounce ones, but the floating one, what's the advantage?
So there's a couple of reasons also why we do well with our boat. Our boat drifts slow, right? The down east boat, basically I've got a lot of boat in the water. It's one of the reasons why we were going after the down east boats. So we're not blowing by at like 2 knots. Most of the time, we're 3/4 of a knot, half a knot, 3/4 of a knot. We're not going super fast. So the baits will be they'll be a little bit floppy, but if you're not on a floating head, the floating head keeps the bait off and kind of undulating and going back and forth, as what I would imagine is what's happening down there.
Oh yeah, it's giving it more action. I would say, on a slower drift, that makes perfect sense.
And the bait's in the strike zone a lot longer with a slower drifting boat, right? So that's one of the reasons. So we're in the right spot. Again, this is when I'm torturing myself with data and trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. It's like, okay, it starts with getting the bait in the strike zone. What's the best way to do that? And we built everything around that. So we find that those high-low rigs, especially in the super sticky areas, work really well. I might cut off the bottom hook if it's like super sticky. But there's actually we fish in super sticky things, and if we use slow pitch rods, we use in that day that are also sensitive. So what you can do is you can kind of keep that. You'll feel it starting to stick, and you just bring the rod just a little bit, like literally like 3 or 4 inches, just to keep it from hanging, and that'll work well. So we do that with a high low. That's number 1, probably the most used rig that we have. Rig number 2 is the M3 spoon that we use. And they make a couple different sizes. We use their medium-sized spoon because those spoons like a faster drift, so we're not drifting that fast. The smaller spoon we find works well. We'll wait till it's a little bit windier, so it's more like the 3/4 of a knot speed, not the half a knot that we're doing. And we'll use that on typically the second half of the month in August when we know that we have a shot at the double-digit fish. We're losing them, and they're a pain in the neck you have to not me, but DJ has to reset the rigs, and it's a whole other thing we can talk about how we make sure that everybody's fishing in the water all the time. But so the spoons work really well, and then the last thing we'll just use like a plain old chicken rig.
Yep.
That'll work with a big strip on it. Those are the 3 things, but that's all we use. You don't use anything else.
No bucktailing.
We'll have guys that come on. This is really interesting. we'll have people that come on the boat, the Sharpies that come on the boat, and they're bucktailing, and they're awesome. They're really, really good. But typically they'll have like one or two guys in their party who have a chicken rig. And guess who catches the biggest fish consistently is that chicken rig on the big strip catches the bigger fish. I don't know why. It's bigger profile bait. Not that the other guys that are fishing the bucktails, and the high-low rig is similar to the bucktail anyway because you're still working it, right? You could put a bucktail on the bottom instead of a sinker, and then you're good to go there. But yeah, this is awesome. This is and the reason why actually I could talk about this forever, and I won't. The fluke fishing now to me is like what I was doing when I was younger when the striped bass fishing was hard. Now not that the fluke fishing is hard, but I can definitely cull out the bigger fishes and cull out the limits and do our thing by thinking about like, okay, what do we need to do atypically, right? And this is like, how am I fishing the high-low rigs? When are we fishing the spoons? How do I need to move the boat, right? Like one of the things that you mentioned, I'm moving the boat a lot, right? Sure, doing short drifts. I'm a little bit maniacal, probably a little bit too maniacal. But I don't know if you felt. Do you remember like I would like take the boat in and out of gear and kind of like just bump it back and forth? I need to get the boat basically not only drifting but oriented over the piece that I'm drifting correctly, so that your guys' baits run well, and then I got to put you over the rock. So, and I'm literally putting people over the exact area that I want to fish, right? And how do I know that? You can share.
Yeah, one of our favorite stories actually. We were doing a family trip, and I would never get away with this, but he got away with it. We're at the end of the day here. We're on a pretty good fluke bite over at the local, just rocky bottom grounds, and we were killing it. And my dad goes to set the hook on a fish, and he claims his hands were slimy from the spearing. I don't believe him. And he completely dropped the rod in the water and didn't go after it, just let it go, watch it go to the bottom. And the next day we happened to have a trip, 6 guys, and it was a weekend the next day. I think we had gone out on a Friday. It was the weekend the next day, and it was crowded. So we had to make sure we knew where the fish were within this area, and we were on the exact same spot. One of the guys brings up his rig. He's like, I got a line attached to here. And we're like, oh, it happens once in a while. We didn't have too much hope. And eventually we started pulling the line, and the rod came up that he dropped.
Though it might not feel like it yet, the saltwater season is coming up fast, which means it's time to reserve your spot at the rail on one of the boats in the Helen H fleet. The trips begin in early April aboard the Starfish, fishing the winter flounder grounds in Cape Cod Bay. By June, the Helen H will be running past Nantucket to the best fluke fishing grounds in the Northeast. If catching a doormat fluke is on your bucket list, these trips offer your best shot at catching a double-digit flatfish. I caught my first 10-pound fluke aboard the Helen H a couple years ago, and that fish wasn't even in the top 3 when it came to deciding who won the pool money. New for 2025, fishermen can enjoy more space at the rail aboard the Angler, which is running 10-hour, open boat, ultra limited trips to Nantucket Shoals. And if you want to fish the canyons, my favorite way to get there has always been aboard a headboat. The Helen H begins running offshore in late summer with 2 and 3 day trips targeting tuna, mahi, and swordfish. A couple years back, I watched Cheech lose his first ever swordfish right at the boat aboard the Helen H, and we'll be back out there this fall looking for redemption. There's plenty of great fishing options with the Helen H fleet this season, but the boats book up fast. So be sure to reserve your trip today at helen-h.com. Yeah, that's precise, dude. Hit that same spot, that same drift. That's
yeah,
it's
pretty it's pretty necessary, and that's how even when I used to fish Montauk, right, I would do the same exact thing. And I'm not the only one who does that. That's sort of where the captains earn their wage, knowing how to what works for them. And I'm not the only one who fishes like this. I may be a little bit more maniacal than other people, and I may spend more time. Really, I'm constantly thinking about it. Especially as we're coming into the season, off season now, I'm trying to figure out what's going to work better next year. We're reevaluating. I have a couple of things I think I'm going to try next season that we're thinking about. Yeah, that's the getting back to like, what does it work? Those 3 rigs, drifting that certain way, and that's what we do.
Can I ask you about the spoon rig a bit? Because I don't have.
Sure.
I think I've made 2 drifts with them ever, so I don't have very little experience. What's the appeal of the spoon rig? So I'll just describe it really quick. Looks kind of like a 3-way rig, but somewhere ahead of the hook there is a metal spoon. Looks like your regular casting spoon. Some of them are as big as 7 inches, 6 inches. Some are as small as maybe 3 inches. But it's ahead of the hook, and I guess the idea is it gives it action.
So they actually spin like a freshwater spinner lure will. So it'll spin around, spin around the hook. In addition to the spoon, though, you're fishing a really long strip, and there's 2 hooks. The way M3 has them, this is the reason why we love them, is it's a 2-hook setup. So we're fishing long, like literally like a strip like this long, right? And then you got the spoon. So our profile of our bait is this big.
Yeah, so you're miming about, looks like 12, 14 inches. Yeah,
There's only one fish we're fishing for.
Yeah.
Right. Believe it or not, the smaller fish will fight above their weight class, and they'll hit it sometimes too. But we're really just fishing for the big fish then, and it's not always a 9-10 pound fish that you're hitting on there, but they're typically some really, really nice fish that are going on there. Yeah.
So it's a way to show them a bigger bait.
Absolutely. It's big profile bait. There's flash in there that catches their attention, and the double hook on the big bait is huge. I'm actually a big proponent of being able to put 2 hooks into a bait if you can. It takes care of that short hit and long hit as well. Right?
Now, what are your go-to baits? Now, I know we used a lot of fish bites that day. So fish bites are an artificial bait. We had a couple different types on there. One was more of like a soft plastic, and the other was the strip that dissolves over the as you drift it.
So on the high-low rigs, we use the fish bites. There's always a fish bite on on our hook. Fish bites is an alternative to other products that are out there. It's a little bit of a kind of a funny story about how we even found fish bites. But I'll tell you what we use, and I'll tell you how we discovered it. So we'll use the easy strips fish bites, right? And we'll especially like that earlier in the season, and also when we're fishing for sea bass, right? They're these little strips that really don't look like much, and you put them on the hook and they dissolve. But
over time, not right away. It takes them 20 minutes, 30 minutes of hard
probably
drifting.
even longer. And it's got a little piece of mesh in it that keeps it on the bait. So as it's dissolving, it's not like it dissolves off the hook. It's all bound together. And what it'll do is it'll emit a scent. So we'll do that, and we'll tip it with a spearing. And we'll fish that, and it's great because if a fish comes in and whacks the spearing, we lose the spearing. You just drop it back, and they still see the profile, and there's still a scent there, and they come in, and it works great. It doesn't really look like something that's attractive to human beings, right? Like we all like the big colors and the flash and this and that, but it works really, really well. And the other thing that we do is we use their Fight Club, which is a traditional grub that everybody's familiar with. What we found with fish bites is the grubs are a push. They work just as well as everybody else. I don't think anybody's worked better. But the thing with fish bites is it lasts a lot longer. We're not losing the tail. And with the amount of fishing that we're doing and the amount of up and down and the amount of fish that we're catching in a day, it's huge for us, right? Both from economics and, more importantly, time, right? Especially with the short drifts. We have to make sure that everything looks good. The way we found the fish bites, I'll leave that again to DJ. And then I'll give my version of the story. But go ahead.
We can kind of share this one here. I believe we had ran out of our traditional grubs, and that's kind of my job to make sure the boat's stacked. And there was a fishing show we had gone to where we picked up a few Zample packs of fish bites, and I had ran downstairs and I had grabbed them, and thank goodness they happened to work. Because I might not have been getting paid that day if we didn't have anything to fish with. I mean, we truly just ran out of grubs. We had nothing left to fish with. Grabbed the Fight Club and the easy strips, and we started tomahawking fish. Not just fish, big fish. It was awesome.
So the part that I'll add to that is that may sound like there was a lot more transparency as this was happening. What really happened is we ran out of them. I didn't hear anything about it, right? I was like in the wheelhouse trying to figure out, next moves and all that. And DJ comes in. He's like, "Hey, I've got bad news and good news. The bad news is we're out of gulp. All right." I'm like, "How does that even happen?" Right? And of course, this is a party, so it's got to be hard. Going home with the boss. In the evening, right? I'm like, "How does that happen?" I don't understand. We were in the car. We were in the tackle shop this morning. In the tackle shop last night. He said, "Well, wait a second. I put the fish bites on, and they are working, twice as good as what they normally did." I was, and I forgot. I forgave him for the first part, and then we went totally. And this is something that DJ's really good at, right? DJ's really good at evolving what we do. There's a lot of things. The way the cockpit runs today is different than when I first set the standard for the way the cockpit and the way we can manage, the way everything's done. He redid that. He's got all of our rigs on pool noodles now. He did that. So there's another thing with the fish bites. It was his, he thought about it himself. It was like, okay, I'm out of this. Let me go to this, and he did it, and we went all in on it. And then all of a sudden, boom! Like it was, especially for sea bass. Sea bass, there's some. I don't know why, but we catch huge sea bass with these as well, which really helps. We're catching great fluke, but people sometimes complain about catching short sea bass. The fish bites, the easy strips, seem to cull out the bigger sea bass. Right? I called them. I called the guys up. I called Brett up down to fish bites. I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "It's not the first time we've heard it. It definitely is. They seem to cull out the bigger sea bass also as well." So
I first discovered them because for kingfish, for northern kingfish, I used to work in a tackle shop in South Jersey, and I'd get breaks on. You get a discount for working in the tackle shop on almost everything except bloodworms. Bloodworms are like little squirmy gold, and they were so expensive. I don't know if they got up to $150 a piece that summer. It was something outrageous to go and then feed to like baby dogfish and hope for a couple kingfish. But these fish bites came out right around then, and that was the go-to. They would stay on the hook forever. Caught the kingfish really well. I noticed that you definitely wanted warmer water, and I know they have two formulas for them now. Then if the water wasn't warm enough, they wouldn't dissolve quickly enough back then. But I know they've really refined it. I think they've got a cold water formula and a warm water formula. That's like the cold water just it disperses a little bit more quickly. The warm water one it needs that higher temperatures in the 70s water temperatures.
Gotcha. Yeah, we I guess we're using the ones that are designed for the Northeast. The warmest water that we get, I would say it's probably high 60s, low 70s. Even though the top readings will be higher, it's definitely a lot colder. We'll bring the sinkers up, and the sinkers are cold. Certainly not the same temp as the top of the water. But yeah.
So what is it about that area that attracts that makes it a good spot for big fluke, and what makes August the month? Like, why is that your trophy fluke time?
So August is the flukers are starting to congregate in the ocean areas, getting ready to make their way off to the continental shelf. Now, what happens is the end of August, beginning of September, the first really big blow that we have, they're gone. They're gone. They're like, if we're gonna fish for them, we'll go really, really deep, right? So and they're on the feed, right? So you have big fish. They're congregated in different, and then they'll move all over the place as well, right? So we have to figure out how many feet of water they're in. That's really the big thing for us. Like when we're getting intel, I don't pay as much of attention to like the areas that they're in or what bait people are using. It's just how many feet of water, right? Are they in? And quite frankly, though, like this fluke from the bay all the way out to however many feet there are anyway, it's just really finding like where those bigger fish are. And and thinking about it, as the business matures more and more, I talk to people less and less about what they're doing, because it's really more of like hunting where those fish are, finding where they're stacked up, and the day is really made by a couple areas of 20 feet, 15 feet. That's really what that's when we limit that boat out and you see these big honker fish that we catch, they're all caught in tight areas, right? It's just a matter of hopping around until we find the areas, right, that they're in for that day.
So you said you do some canyon fishing. How big a part of your program is that? How many going out there?
The big thing about offshore fishing is the weather windows, and the weather windows are so challenging, right? And I can get 3 inshore trips to 1 offshore. So what I do is I concentrate my windows around when the inshore fishing is not as strong, right? So September is a big transition month inshore. So the first part of September, we still may be fishing for some fluke. We'll be doing light tackle, bonito, but it really starts to slow up before the bass comes in. And coincidentally enough, the tuna become really strong. The yellowfin tuna starts schooling up, and you start hearing about them on the draggers and such. So that's really when we'll start yellowfin fishing in the fall in September. Interestingly enough, July, is also one of those months. Now there's fluke in July. But the way we run our business is we're most of the time we're centered around the banner fish to catch, right? So like we want to be catching PR. We typically want to become catching PRs unless people are like, hey, I just want to have a fun day, which we totally can do and do have fun. But a lot of people want to have the opportunity to catch their PR. So in July, well, there's a lot of big fish, a lot of fluke fish. In July, there's a little bit more luck to coming across it than August, when I know that, okay, the behavior is more predictable. So in July, we'll run offshore again too, like especially the beginning, the first 2-3 weeks in July, when the bluefin will come in and the yellowfin will fill in behind them, right? And that's what we'll do. We'll leave, at like 1 o'clock in the morning, take our time getting out there and be out there before light and hit it. It's more midshore. We'll do the canyon more in September. This year was a really good year out in the canyon, so that was good.
When you could get out there, it was pretty good, man. In the fall,
good, yeah.
I remember there was a great run of fish in September, but the issue was the wind. It felt like it was it blew 3/4 of the month, I think. So
yeah, it was just really. I mean, I'll be honest, it was challenging. Usually, you have 1 or 2 months that are like that, and you can expect that. This year, May, June, July, August, September, and October, it finally started getting nice. We got out, and which, thank goodness, our striped bass book also got jammed up too, which was great. Word got out of how good the bass fishing was, and we had a really good time.
When this past season, when did you call it? When was the last trip? And what
we
was
started
it for?
getting blown out at the end of the year. That's when I put the boat away right before New Year's. So
really?
Yeah, just like 2 weeks ago.
When was your last trip?
We still had giants that were out there, so we were doing that after. And the black fishing gets really good at the end of the season also. So you want to push the limit.
Now the New York season closes mid-December, right?
Oh yeah, it's the I think it was the 23rd or something like that.
Oh, you guys have a tighter season than a lot of the other.
It does, but
states.
I'm also hopping on other people's boats though too to do a little bit of commercial black fishing as well, right? So we have that, so the season gets extended on that.
How's the tog fishing?
It's good later in the season when that water gets colder.
Yeah.
Right, and also it's good in September in the bays, September, October in the bays, whenever the season opens. Actually, the fish are stacked in the bridges before the season opens, and then the season opens definitely strong.
Yeah, people don't realize tog are largely a warm water fish. Like they're plenty active throughout the summer. It's just that they're not super ball. They've got more competition for the baits too. Is that they've got all the sea bass and the scup that are going to rip your crabs and clams apart for them. But, man, I know guys down in South Jersey who are catching 6-pounders through the summer in back bays in 75-degree water. They're not afraid of warm water.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we're not targeting them. No. We're targeting the warmer water species during that for sure. But, it's interesting. It's a good, interesting data point I'll think about.
So you wrapped your season. So your boat got put away just before New Year's. When's it go back in the water, and what are your first couple trips of the year?
So the boat's in the water. It's just decommissioned.
Okay.
Right. It's a lot easier to work on the boat when it's in the water. So, hopping off, I don't have to climb up on the ladder, and the ladder's sitting in ice, and, hoping that I get my leg over the gunnel without slipping, and yelling at DJ to hold the ladder more steady. So we get to skip all that when I keep it in the water. So Steve will pull the boat out in the water for us in March, beginning of April, for a week, and we're up and running by early April.
Nice. And those first trips for stripers?
Yeah, the best starts in April.
Do you have a spring tog season in New York, right?
We do. It used to be, I'll tell you what, with the striped bass took off, right? I used to do it. I don't do it anymore. We just go bass fishing.
Yeah. It's so good in
It's
April.
a lot more fun. Yeah.
Now, do you guys is there a species that you can catch in your area that you haven't yet put on the boat that you'd like to? Like, what is the bucket list fish to put on the Corazon still? What's hanging out there for you
It
guys?
was a cobia, but we did that.
Did you do it? That was I was going to guess it was a cobia, so you guys got one?
Yeah, we've gotten a couple of cobia on the boat.
Nice,
yeah.
man. How big were they?
Some of them were probably like mid-40s.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I would say probably mid-40s. We've had cobia when we've been fluke fishing. Right? You never know when they're going to come up. You
Yeah,
know?
the first cobia we landed actually was on a bucktail and a grub.
Oh, was it did you cast to it, or was it
No.
just it ate it off the bottom?
It ate it about midway up. I believe the client was reeling up, and all of a sudden he's like, "Why is my bait way out there?" Then there was a cobia on.
That's exciting.
It was good. We've been fortunate. We've had, if you go through the list of fish to catch, obviously all the ground fish. We've had plenty. Ling, cod, fluke, sea bass. The thresher fishing is so much fun. That's actually probably, if you ask me, what my most, besides fluke fishing, I like to fish for because I get to hone my craft and do the thing. But the thing that's the most fun for me is probably the thresher fishing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's because it goes from 0 to light speed in about 5 seconds. I still have to go and find the area. I short drift also at thresher fishing.
I was going to ask, do you chum for threshers?
Absolutely. We look like
Okay.
but I do it a little bit differently than the traditional shark fishing. I think that people think of shark fishing, dump your bucket of chum, just
Put
drift
it in the yellow chum
day.
bag and just let it thaw out throughout the day.
Yeah, and just keep on going and hoping and praying. That's not the way I shark fish. Basically, the way I shark fish is I look for the productive area, the bait, in particularly, especially now we're fishing all within 15 miles of the beach, right? So we're not running with no more mako fishing.
Yeah.
It's all 15 miles in, and I short drift. Once again, right? Short. So how long is a short drift? I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour, right? Because the fish we're not fishing in very deep water. So it's not like the fish are either there or they're not there. And there's no reason to keep on going. I'd rather go and find them. All right. No fish here. Let me hop. Matter of fact, this year we had one day, oh man, it was a tougher day. And I ended up finding them at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I just short drift, keep on moving east, and then boom, we found them, and away we went. It was I do like it. It is a lot of fun. So that's the fun. The fluking and striped bass fishing. That's my roots. And tuna fishing. I mean, obviously, I guess we like to fish, but the one thing too, the way we run the boat is that we fish with our guests the way we would fish. Right, so no, especially if and I may be even a little bit more subtle about it, but no stone unturned while still having a really good time on the boat. Right, the thing that we prioritize him there with my son, as long as he's not out at sea, and even when he's not out at sea, we have another mate on the boat, Jameson, same age as DJ, he's a D1 wrestler, great kid also. It's a good environment. If I'm going to spend the entire day in close quarters, even though the boat is bigger, it's still close quarters, right? It's got to be fun.
Yeah.
Right. So we fish the way we want to, and all our guests on our boat are all great people, right? That's the sort of environment that we try to foster on the boat.
So what was the day you guys were out there? What's your most memorable day fishing together, the two of you?
What do you think? I'm going to leave that one on you. I have so many of them.
Most memorable day. I think our longest day, or one of our longest days, was.
It could be memorable for a bad reason if you want to go that way.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We had gone out there. It was when the bluefin first started showing up. We had gone out there and we had heard there were some smaller fish in. I mean, we knew the giants were in, but this week we had heard 150-pound class fish, 200-pound class fish. It's like, all right, let's grab the smaller reels. Let's go head out there. And we get out there, and there's 600 to 800 pound fish. They're not boiling. They are flying 10 feet out of the water all around us. And my dad's screaming. He's like, get the bait in the water, get the bait in the water. We get the bait in the water, and it's game on. It was a 50. It's not a big reel. I'm strapped into this thing, and it's just me and my dad. So we were on this fish for 3.5 hours at max drag. The thing, it was fun for the first 20 minutes. And then the thing started bringing me down to my knees, almost ended up in the water a few times.
So you're on stand-up gear?
Yeah, it was,
oh, man.
It was brutal. It was brutal. My back was purple afterwards. It was bad.
So I had left the day open.
Uh,
Did you get it?
Yeah, we did land
there
it.
you go. You left that part out.
Yeah,
I mean,
we did land it. It was a lot of fun. I mean, in the moment it wasn't fun. Afterwards, it ended up being a lot of fun. I would never do that again.
It was, the backstory is we left the boat open that day because I had an event to go to in the early evening, and I knew if I was chartering, I would never make it. And there's a couple of these I'll do a year, with my wife. I'm like, all right, I'll give you, these 2 days, all yours. So this was one of those days. So I had done some work around the house in the morning, looked at DJ. It's like, I don't know, 11 o'clock. And I'm like, man, it's beautiful out. And I know that there's this tuna bite. Let's see if we can get one and run home before this event. So
it's dangerous. It's a dangerous game.
Obviously, you could hear the great decisions I've made in my life when it's come to fishing. So grab DJ, we go out, we grab our bait, and I wasn't really expecting to hook up. It was more just to make me feel good about myself that I didn't miss out on anything, right? You know what I'm saying? When you're home.
You hear the report, you're like, man, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least check this for myself.
We gave it a shot. We checked the box, but
yeah, that's what I was. I
happened.
just wanted to check the box to feel better about myself. Grab DJ, make it a learning day. We get out there, and we literally walked into an all-out bluefin, true giant bluefin blitz that was on, and we were pretty much by ourselves. It's the middle of the afternoon. No, this is not not the time people were. It was really early in the morning or in the evening. I mean, it was a tide change. So that part was good. So yeah, just as DJ said, he put it the bait wasn't in the water for more than 10 seconds, and it was just a 50. I was we didn't have the 80s. There was nothing in the gunnels. They weren't our bent butts. And better him than me.
that's one thing I'll always
somebody's got to run the
remember.
boat, man.
Yeah, that's one thing I'll always remember when that bait hit the water, because there were 2 fish that came by and hit it. One, it's a live bunker, so one came by, missed it, killed the bunker because he hit it, and the bunker's floating up sideways, and all of a sudden it's you just see a black wall, and the bunker disappears, and then it was game on.
Oh,
It
that's
was
so good. To get to eat boat side like that.
Yeah, it was the biggest fish I've ever seen. I mean, that was a big bluefin. We've seen a few, but that was a big one on stand-up gear, no less.
It was definitely good. And the thing is, we tell our stories about our favorite times. A lot of times it's the times that we fish with ourselves. When we're fishing with guests, we love it. But the thing is that there's so much focus on keeping everybody on the fish, keeping ourselves locked up, keeping everybody safe, and all. We love it. But it's a lot. It's definitely there's a lot of work going on.
Oh yeah, you want to make sure everybody goes home. First off, safe. Second, having had a good time.
Yeah.
The fishing's the fishing, but you can at least control how much fun people are having. So
we've had our clients on some big fish. Probably the biggest thresher we had that was done on a stand up on a little two speed reel that was not undergun because the Daiwa reels, they put up to 50 pounds of drag on it. It's just that it's a light reels, and again, wasn't expecting to get a 300-pound plus thresher that day.
That was also a difficult fish. I remember that fish. We had hooked that fish in the pectoral fin. So threshers, a lot of times you'll either hook them in the mouth or you'll hook them in the tail, because they'll hit the bait with their tail before they go after it. That one, I don't know how we hooked it in the pectoral fin, but it was probably the most difficult place to hook a fish, because with a big fish like that,
I mean, threshers are big. They've got big pec fins too. I mean,
I mean, when you hook a fish like that, a fish of that size, and it's hooked in the mouth on a big rod, you can kind of turn the head, so you can get that fish to turn around. Or if it's in the tail, you can kind of the fish ends up floating backwards eventually. That one, the fish was in charge the entire time. There's no way that you're not turning anything. You're not floating it backwards. It's just hooked in the, that kind of hurts. It's in my side.
Yeah, that was actually that was probably one of my more memorable fishes that we caught. Plus, we've had some big fluke trips also. The fluke trips that'll stand out in my mind, nobody will know about it. It'll be me saying A, B, and C, there should be fish here. And I'll go to a spot that nobody's fishing, and there'll be fish there, and I'll be like, yeah, let's do it. So, like, for me, that's like, those are some memorable. But again, nobody really, DJ will know it.
But just to know, like, I called it right.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we got this one right.
Yeah,
So,
you could have said the day fishing with me, but that's okay. I don't mind too much that you didn't. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Where can we find more information about Corazon Charters? Where can we find you on social and on the web?
It's Corazon Fishing on social media and corazonfishing.com as well. You can look at info on the charters, and you can keep updated on what we're doing fishing wise on the social media.
And we've got a TV show coming out with these guys that should be hitting right around, probably close to when this podcast hits. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and man, more to come with Doug and DJ. So, guys, thank you so much for coming up. It was great fishing with you in August and great hanging with you here in the depths of winter on Cape Cod. So,
thanks. We appreciate you hosting us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us.